Previous video, not lots of people I find cannot get nuance, so they don't understand how two things can be true at the same time. Lots of people cannot think like that. Yeah, I do find it's a peculiar failing of many people in the Western world. Eastern philosophies do tend to aren't so binary, and I think you'll find that a lot of people in I do think it's quite I do think that it's more common in the West for people to struggle with nuance, understanding that two things can be true at the same time. That is not necessarily a binary, and they don't necessarily cancel each other out. In other words, being able to think holistically, basically, or in other words, to see things as greater than the sum of their parts, basically. Apparently I'm not supposed to be able to do that because I'm autistic, but clearly I can. Not being able to think in nuanced terms. So if a disabled person says that they'd rather not be disabled, or that they wish they had what the non-disabled person has, that doesn't mean that they are depressed, and it doesn't mean that they haven't accepted their condition. But on the other hand, if a disabled person truly does not accept their condition, and some disabled people are so not accepting of their condition that they end up quite depressed by it. Now, I personally do accept my condition because that's just the way I am, and I don't tend to get depressed as a rule, but there are some disabled people who genuinely do get depressed by their condition and generally feel really, really bad about their condition, okay? That needs to be supported without someone trying to tell them that they mustn't feel bad, because that is basically showing a complete lack of empathy and understanding, whereas true empathy is meeting the person where they are. Yes, you want to help someone to ultimately feel better about themselves, but the way to go about that is not to tell them not to feel bad about their condition, because the person is well within their rights to feel bad about their disability. That is not a sin, and it's not within the non-disabled person's remit to try and correct the person. I almost feel that I had to kind of clarify that I accept my condition, because if I said I didn't accept it, I would be committing such a great sin that all hell would break loose. But why should I have to go to great lengths to try and prove that I do accept my condition? As it happens, I do accept it. But why does that matter? What if I didn't accept it? So what? Why would that be a sin? Why is that a sin? Why does the non-disabled person not like that? Why do they have a problem with that? And why is it so important for the non-disabled person that you should see your condition as not better or worse, just different? Why does it offend them? Why do they think that you are in a bad way, that you are struggling, that you're seeing things wrong? This is the irony, right? It's not better or worse, just different. And yet, if you think differently to them, you are in the wrong. And you need to see things in a more nuanced way. But that's ironic, because they're the ones who are not seeing things in a nuanced way, because they're not understanding that two things can be true at the same time. That you, wait a minute, that you both see your condition as a disorder, don't like having it, but on the same hand, not on the other hand, but on the same hand, you accept your condition, or disorder, or impairment, or whatever you think it is. Why do they feel the need to correct that? You'd almost think that they're the ones with the condition. You'd almost be mistaken for thinking that they're the ones with the problem, because we're not talking about them. It's not about them, is it? It's about me. It's about my, or you, or if you're the one with a disability, or anyone with a disability. It's about you and your relationship to your own experience. They have not got the right to tell you whether or not you're wrong if you use the word disorder for your own self. I mean, how rude of them. They've not got the right to do that, so why do they think they do have the right to do that? Why does it make them feel so uncomfortable? I'll be very interested to know, because I'm trying to understand. I came to two possibilities. The first one was that it comes down to a certain selfishness, that they feel uncomfortable, deeply uncomfortable, when a disabled person tells them that they have an impairment or are disordered, because it challenges, ultimately, it challenges the narrative that they've been indoctrinated in. They've been indoctrinated in a narrative which says that nowadays we must see disability in this way, or even that disability doesn't exist anymore. So when someone comes along who challenges that dominant narrative, it's seen as threatening because they cannot accommodate it within their preconceived cognitive biases. They cannot, it's like a kind of, how can I put it? It threatens, essentially. It threatens. It'd be a bit like me, someone saying how good capitalism is, and then me suddenly saying, expressing some anti-capitalist sentiment. That would be threatening to someone who thinks capitalism's all great and has just basically accepted that, and they're not expecting someone to come along and challenge them. That might make them feel uncomfortable, because from a purely selfish perspective, we tend to feel uncomfortable when our prejudices or assumptions are challenged, particularly when we're not expecting them to be challenged. And that's true for all of us, actually, but it is selfish ultimately, because we're not really trying to kind of think more broadly. So, as I was saying, it could be down to selfishness and trying to protect themselves. They need to shore up this particular image of autism. But it might not be selfishness. It could also be that genuinely they think they are doing a person a good service. That they genuinely think that the person that they need to try and make the person feel better, because they mistakenly think that if someone says that their disorder, that they don't like, that they'd rather not have their disorder, they mistakenly think that the person is very unhappy and that it isn't a very good approach to life. They mistakenly think, and that it's their duty then to correct the person, to help them, and that they're actually caring for the person, when actually it's the complete opposite, because they're not taking a person's truth as true. In other words, they're gaslighting a person. They're actually ultimately telling a person that their way of seeing their own condition is wrong, basically. But it could be both a bit of selfishness and misplaced empathy. But let me know what you think. This whole idea that autism is just a difference, not better or worse, just different, is an absolute load of crap. I say in no uncertain terms, autism